All right, continuing on our mammal unit. This is actually the last big day of notes for the unit. All right, this is kind of where um, mammals kind of come to a pause for us. Once again, it's a subject that I'd love to spend a little more time diving into, and maybe something for the future that we will. But we'll have a fairly decent dive into mammalian reproduction today. So, a couple things right out of the gates. The hardware of mammalian reproduction. All right, the uterus versus a uterine horn. So on the left side of the screen, we see a human uterus. That's something that you probably have talked about in health class before, but it provides an attachment or a location or an attachment location for the placenta, excuse me. And so it provides a connection between the mother and the offspring so that they can be nurtured until birth. And once again, this is a unique mammalian characteristic. Other animals just lay eggs, and then that's their birthing process. Mammals will actually develop that embryo inside of the mother and give birth to a fairly well developed offspring. Now, the difference between maybe some humans and other things is that there are quite a few mammals that have a uterus, humans be one of them, where that structure is adapted to hold one offspring at a time. Now, yes, there are twins in for humans, and sometimes you see triplets, but those are actually anomalies. All right, that's a mutation or something odd that's happened. Um, Typically, that is, like I said, adapted for one offspring at a time. Versus, if we look at cats and dogs, they give birth to litters, meaning, they might have half a dozen to a full dozen offspring, and their internal setup is something like this. All right, so we have a variety of kind of growing chambers in there, and so they can give birth to 5, 6, 7, 8 different offspring in the same process there. Now, I don't think I have anything on here. Yeah, I don't have anything on here. Sorry, kind of graphic picture coming up there. But one thing that's interesting is that some species, there's so many different birthing chambers that actually different males can impregnate the same litter for species. I think of polar bears are actually polar bears are a little bit different, but anyway, that is something that exists out there. So little graphic placenta is attached to the wall of the uterus, provides the fetus with nourishment. Like I said, that's the kind of the miracle organ in between that makes that whole thing happen. Very interesting story of the birth of a giraffe. Kind of a cool look at that. Also a little graphic if you want to check that out. Um, to go along with mammalian reproduction, mammals have mammary glands. All right, nice convenient naming for us there. And those are the glands that produce milk to feed the young. Now it is in it's structured in a variety of ways, but it's mammary tissue that produces milk. Females of all mammalian species have the capacity to produce said milk. Once again, humans and I keep saying humans, mammals play the game of rather than having 1,000 offspring and hoping a couple survive, they play the evolutionary game of we're going to have a few offspring and put a lot of resources to them in order to ensure their survival. Same thing producing milk. Producing milk is a direct expense to the mother. The mother doesn't get those calories. She passes those calories on in the process there. So it's a little bit about the hardware and the anatomy of reproduction in mammals. Let's talk a little bit about their breeding, mating, courting behavior because it is interesting. We saw it with birds, where birds will, males will go through all of these songs and dances and nest building and bright displays to try to attract a female. Mammals are usually less ornate. It's less of a deal. Usually comes down to dominance. Right, so male competition. So males will compete for access to females, and it leads to dominance, hierarchies, and territoriality. All right, so the idea that the strongest or best adapted male will mate with the females in that region. Right? That's true for a lot of ungulates, a lot of carnivores. You think about a pride of lions, they have one male lion that is the strongest and best adapted, and his pride of females around him. Sometimes this results in sexual dimorphism. So that the idea that the two genders look very differently and they have very different features because of this need to attract females or need to um, fight and establish dominance to gain access to females. So we see a lot of it in birds, and we talked about that when we were there, that the male's job is to be brightly colored and attract a mate. In mammals, we see a lot of times it's a size difference. All right, so there's a lot of male mammals that will be larger in order to be better fighters and different things there. So a little bit of that. Humans, you know, do humans have sexual dimorphism? I think yes. Males definitely have broader shoulders. They're going to have facial hair. They're going to have those kind of things where females are not going to have that. Why this is the case is a couple of hypotheses. All right. One is the good genes hypotheses. So why do the males look so much different to try to attract a female? Part of it is they're trying to show off, and once again, I say trying to, this is their genes working behind the scenes. It is not a decision, but they're trying to show off that they have very healthy genes. So if we look at, let me go back here. If you look at these animals there, just their size, their shape, the quality of the colors is suggesting that they are very healthy, and not only very healthy from a survivability standpoint, but they're very genetically healthy. All right, they're large, they're powerful, they have a good complexion, those kind of things. So it is a hypothesis that, hey, that's a sign of good genetics. So the females are more attractive to that because they're showing that they are genetically healthy. All right. The other example is the runaway hypothesis. So we see a bird down there on the left. I'm not gonna be able to think of the name of the bird off the top of my head. But it has these weird tail feathers that actually make it not as good at flying. They're a hindrance, but being able to show off that, hey, I have this trait that actually makes me less adapted to survive, but I'm still surviving is attractive. And then as those traits have been selected, that just kind of run away in that genetic drift direction there. To go along with breeding, many species have discrete breeding seasons, right? So we've heard for deer hunting, it's called the rut. When the females come on the market, they're accepting um, of males and ready to reproduce. All right. So deer only reproduce in the fall, white-tailed deer, I should say, only reproduce in the fall. And as a result, it changes dramatically their social structure. Males usually don't spend time with females throughout the year. The males go wild in the fall trying to go find a female to mate with. And then the females typically raise the offspring on their own. Makes sense for them because then the females can carry the offspring through the winter time and give birth in the spring. And then the fawns or their offspring will have the entire spring, summer, and fall to put on weight to survive the next winter. Other species exhibit continuous breeding. So for humans, females are fertile, throughout the year. And so our population goes through a continuous growth pattern. So discrete breeding results over here on the left, where all of the newborn offspring are going to be born in the month of March. And so we're going to see these huge population bumps going through versus when we talk about things like the human population, we see this continuous growth. Some food for thought there. If we were in person, we'd have a debate about these things, but do humans display sexual dimorphism? What are attributes that make humans more or less attractive to the opposite sex? What are those indicators of, for genetically speaking, and why they may not be the same attributes? Yeah, it's a little harder to do this activity when we aren't in person talking to each other. So we'll skip that for now. And then your assignment today, if you go check things out, is how would the human society be different if we were discrete breeders rather than continuous breeders? All right. If we could only have offspring at a certain time of the year versus all times of the year. All right. That is it for my notes on mammalian reproduction.